With all the drag queen story hour controversy happening, people have asked me, why aren't drag queens reading to kids anyway? So I did some digging, and it turns out Drag Queen Story Hour was created in San Francisco in 2015 by Michelle T. and Radar Productions. Michelle T., a queer author, artist, and a new mother, couldn't find any kid-friendly book readings for LGBTQ parents. They started having drag queens reading stories to children in libraries, and it grew into a global phenomenon. Drag Queen Story Hour now offers literary and creative programming for kids and teens of all ages, led by drag queens and kings all over the world.
So American society and culture, as most of us can agree, is going through a radical change. So radical that we have democratically elected public officials opining on why it's okay to have drag queens read to children at your local library. I mean, just apply common sense here. There are people who are okay with a man dressed up as a woman reading stories to young children at a library. And I'm the one who has a problem to disagree with this. Yeah, okay. Don't you ever wonder why drag queens don't read to senior citizens at a retirement home, or why they're not performing volunteer services at a group home, a homeless shelter, or even at a children's hospital? I mean, as Arsenio Hall would say back in the day,
these aren't jokes, these are thoughts, these are things that make you say.
So this public official, who I mentioned one time in my video I did a while back about the Armenians and Muslims in Southern California who are protesting against the LGBTQ rhetoric being pushed onto the kids, this person was the same politician trying to convince the school board to encourage the LGBTQ curriculum to be taught. And this is Maebe A Girl. Yeah. Like I said in that video before, that's actually a very creative name. I ain't gonna lie, Maebe A Girl. So Maebe A Girl is a drag queen who is also a city councilor that is running for Congress next year. And the way American politics is going, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins that election. So he was on Tim Pool's podcast, and this man was doing his best to defend Drag Queen Story Hour.
And the fact of the matter is, most drag performers are not grooming children. Most drag performers, when they are engaging in Drag Queen Story Hour, there's benefits to that. The benefits of Drag Queen Story Hour, kids love being read to. I remember being read to as a child. I remember sitting in the library, and I remember the librarian being a little boring and just, oh, kids, here's the story, here you go. When kids are imaginative, kids love imagination and fantasy and fun. And there is something that is very imaginative and fantasy filled about drag performance, whether or not you are a cis or trans drag performer. And so children love to be read to by drag performers because it's fun and it's imaginative and it's fantasy filled.
This is the stuff he just making up. This is the BS stuff he just making up. What kids like, they love interaction. They love something that's going to stimulate them. Obviously we know this because, as a kid, a lot of times they would have you go to a party and a clown would be there. Or I remember as a kid, it would be Ronald McDonald, or Wrigley's, I think it was Wrigley and Barnum, the circus, whatever will come in every so often. Kids love the clowns because the clowns would entertain them with jokes, shooting out the water out there, the flour and so forth. The thing with drag queens and just reading to them doesn't do anything to the children. If anything, I would imagine it makes them very fearful because they're, kind of confused, because at the end of the day, you're still just reading to a child. If anything, an adult that reads to a child and helps them enhance their imagination by using their hand gestures and things like that, that's more entertaining to a child than a drag queen just reading to them. So what this guy is saying, it just made up bullshit.
And they're not even saying, okay, you have to be a drag performer, you have to be trans, you have to be LGBTQIA. And that's part of the argument that I disagree with, that LGBTQIA people, and specifically drag performers, are grooming children. We're not grooming them. We're trying to say that you are welcome to be you as you are. If you are cis, heterosexual, fabulous. If you end up being queer, fabulous. We're not trying to steer you any particular way. But I remember being a queer child, and I remember not having any sort of mentor or model to look at. And I felt very othered and I felt very different. And it actually caused a lot of mental health problems. And so when you actually introduce children to the diversity of gender identity, to the diversity of sexuality, to the diversity of everything.
Diversity of sexuality. You want to introduce this to children. You shouldn't introduce anything sexual to children at all. You want to educate them as they reach a certain age in their teenage years, so they know the ins and outs to a certain degree about sexuality, so they don't make mistakes at a young age. But you don't introduce that to them, especially at the age he's referring to, because they're still talking about children being read to at the library. So that's not teenagers. I tell you, these people, I mean, they're sick. They need help. It's not all of them. There's some people that I would imagine that are trans or, do drag shows and, still live respectable lives.
Other than the cis heteronormative family, you show kids that it's okay to be you as you are. You don't have to follow this particular guideline that is, again, defined by the patriarchy. And
you're part of the patriarchy. What are you talking about? You're a man. You are a man taking a woman's position. You are part of the patriarchy. I think these people are delusional. I mean, come on, man. He sees himself so much as a woman that he is so disconnected from the patriarchy, when in actuality he is part of it. Oh my God. And people actually believe this. That's why you can't engage with the whole pronoun stuff. You start falling into this delusion.
And you can be whoever you are, and you're welcome to be who you are. I'm not saying you must be trans, you must be a drag performer, but if you end up being that when you grow up, great.
Are you familiar with Desmond is Amazing?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts? I'll ask some questions, but I just want to let you open up.
Yeah, I don't know Desmond. I have seen Desmond online. I know that they are a queer youth who wanted to engage in drag, and I think that's perfectly okay. I don't think that Desmond's parents are behind the scenes saying, you have to be a drag performer. We're trying to groom you to be trans.
If that's the case, then where does he get this idea from? That he wants to perform and he gets the ability to perform. It's obviously his parents are allowing it. His parents are putting him in a position so he can perform in certain places. That's really disgusting. I mean, these parents actually should have a case against them by child protection services, in my opinion, because to allow your child to engage in something that's hypersexual. Come on, it's one thing if he wants to dress up like his mother at home or something. I mean, I remember as a kid, I put on my mom's church hat or something. You know what I mean? If he put on her heels, I don't agree with that. But that's one thing compared to actually putting this child out in public in front of grown, horny men. Maybe a girl, more like maybe a pedo.
There is actually no benefit to it because queer people and trans people are overwhelmingly ostracized in the society that we live in, that I don't think that a person who didn't want to engage in that would choose to engage in that knowing the kind of ostracism and criticism and hatred that would come to follow.
In many states, what they define as stripping is the removal of any clothing on stage with no nudity. The act of removing clothing is the stripping of clothing.
So, Tim, this is stripping?
Come on, man. Stop being so disingenuous. You know what he's talking about. We ain't talking about taking off your blazer and show your flabby arms. Come on, man. Come on.
You are on stage for a bunch of adults.
I'm on stage for a bunch of adults right now.
Offering you money for the explicit purpose of seeing you remove clothing. This is where you have... context matters, right? Like,
yeah,
I think...
But I think I get where you're going at, Tim, but here's the thing. Drag performers, like there is the reveal of drag. I think that a lot of people just aren't familiar with drag culture, and there is this idea of performing where there's a reveal. And that doesn't mean stripping down and being sexual. Taking off a garment to show an undergarment does not mean that it is stripping or being sexual.
If I didn't know any better, I would say this dude is a narcissist. Everything that Tim says, he attributes to himself or his own personal experience of something that he did, that I did, or when I went on stage, or when this happened, when I was young. This guy doesn't have a wide view of society, and he's supposed to be a public official representing a majority of people. Come on, man. And if you don't remember Desmond the Amazing, or whatever his name is, I'm sick, man. But anyway, here's his introduction right there. I believe it's on the Good Morning America show with Michael Strahan and others.
Please welcome Desmond Napoles, a.k.a. Desmond is amazing.
You saw those people clapping in the crowd, in the audience? All those people should have their laptops checked. Seriously. Like Hunter Biden.
Are they cheering and giving me money because I'm stripping and turning them on? No, it is entertainment and it's a performance and it's a part of queer art. I don't think that this child, I don't think that they're trying to be sexual. I don't even think that the parents are trying to sexualize the person. I think that this is a kid who has seen drag culture, knows that they're queer, and wants to engage in it in a way that is age appropriate. There are queer children being raised in homes that are intolerant. I myself grew up in a home where my parents became much more tolerant when they realized that I was a queer person, and there was a lot of hesitation and objection at first. And that was based off of what they had learned growing up. And so we're perpetuating this culture of gay is weird, LGBTQIA is, oh, that's other. You don't know. Don't engage in that. That's adult content. There's something wrong with that.
It is adult content. The whole premises is based around your sexuality. That's what it's all about. I mean, if you're gay, that means that you like the opposite sex or the same sex. Sorry. If you're trans, that means you want to subscribe to the opposite gender. It's all about sexuality. It's all about gender. This is something that's not be taught to kids, especially at a young age. They get to preteens, teens. You can start having the conversation, but you don't encourage them and you don't have them engaged into it. That's the thing. This guy, I say it, he's very disingenuous and he knows it, but he believes he's very slick, where he could basically, circumvent the system.
I wish I had grown up in a school environment where I had adults and other people around me saying, it's okay to be who you are.
Mm-hmm. No, you don't. It's probably best you grew up the way you did grow up. You know what I'm saying? If he grew up in an environment like that, he'd probably be 10 times worse than this.
I think go ahead.
No, I guess, because like I said, I grew up in an earlier time and I did not have your experience at all. My experience came from other kids. I don't know can I say faggot on here? I was called a faggot every day. Every day of my life, I was called a faggot. And I was still myself, and I don't know. And I think that's what we need to be teaching kids is not for me to tolerate something that you do, but for you to be able to take my opinion and just say, okay, and still be you.
But that's the reason that doesn't happen is because queer kids are growing up in environments that are not necessarily queer. And when you ban any sort of LGBTQIA education from school levels until you get to high school, that's where you breed people who fear and who other folks who are LGBTQIA. The reason that you...
See, that's what I was talking about earlier. They were trying to ban, or they were trying to not allow LGBTQ rhetoric to be taught in the schools in Southern California. I forgot what district it was. But a lot of the Armenians and Muslim families and parents, they didn't want to put up with this. But this guy right here, he was basically trying to advocate to have LGBTQ rhetoric, books, and so forth, and teachings in the school. Because he believes it should not be banned. Regardless, it's elementary, middle school, he doesn't care.
You were called a faggot. The reason I was called a faggot was because those other kids grew up in environments where they heard their parents calling other people faggots.
Right.
And
lies. The only time we used that F word was basically to emasculate a man if he did something that was kind of like, kind of like underhanded or basically not man enough to a certain degree. It was not something they used on a day-to-day basis, just in everyday conversation. Those are all lies.
That's what we're trying to do, is trying to let folks and let kids today in this generation know that
if anything, gay men call each other the F word more than heterosexual men. Because I know some gay guys and you never call them that word. Even when you're mad at them, you don't call them that word. It never crossed my mind. That word to me is associated with a man that's not acting like a man. That's it.
It is okay to be queer. It's okay to be LGBTQIA. And again, there's nothing inherently sexual about being LGBTQIA, just in the same way that there's nothing inherently sexual about being cis heteronormative.
It's all about sex. That's what it's all about. The whole ideology is about sex. What you're talking about is nothing about sex. If that's the case, then just go ahead and take the wig off. Take the makeup on. Take the makeup off. Look like a man that you are. Look like the way you are when you come out the shower. Come on, man. It's all about sex, and now they want to add it into gender.
And there is a connection there, of course, according to who you love and who eventually you have sex with.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we're trying to teach kids about explicit sex.
I gotta completely disagree. We have these two books here. Genderqueer less so. This book is gay more so. Explicitly teach about overt sexual acts, depicting them, and were provided to children sometimes as young as age of 10.
Tim, let me ask you, when you say children, what do you mean by children? Because children
10-year-olds.
could be 0 to 18. What do you mean by children?
So this was 10-year-olds. This is middle schoolers. This book is gay specifically was given to...
You don't think that middle schoolers who are starting to go through puberty and who are starting to have sexual intercourse and starting to experiment with sexuality, you don't think that any of them are queer and might need to learn about queer experience?
There's a difference between sex ed and this book is gay, which teaches those children how to use Grindr.
Thank you, Tim Pool. I mean, come on, this guy is sick, man. Yo, man, what is happening to our society? You know, I mean, we're doomed. We are doomed, seriously, unless people make serious changes and push back against stuff like this. We have to, because this ideology and movement is not stopping. But you know, that's what I believe. That's what I believe is happening. You know, but you guys let me know. Leave a comment down below. I mean, are you okay with drag queens reading to little children at the library?